Ambassador Kanwal Sibal, former Foreign Secretary of India. Sir, thank you very much for joining me on Global Pulse. Once again, great to have you on the show. Of course, it's impossible to get any sort of an agreement when you have Russians and Ukrainians and Europeans on the show. But let me ask you a straight question, sir. We saw what happened during the Trump-Putin summit in Alaska. And a few hours from now, Zelensky is meeting Trump at the White House. And then there will be confabulations with other European leaders too. The question is, sir, how do we expect to see a breakthrough in this war when there doesn't really seem to be any change in the entrenched positions of either side? Putin seems to want Donbass. Trump is telling Zelensky, forget about NATO membership, forget even about Crimea. Zelensky says, no way, we're not giving up any of our land.
It depends who has the cards in their hands. I mean, Zelensky can say whatever he wants, but what cards does he have? He's totally dependent on Europe. He's being totally guided by Europe. He's not in a position to take any independent decision with regard even to his own country. And earlier, he was totally dependent on the United States and still continues to be dependent because if United States walks away and stops supplying of arms and more importantly, intelligence information real time, then I think Ukraine militarily is probably finished. So uh, the the cards are really with Putin, with Russia, because they have incorporated all these four oblasts formally into the Russian Federation. They have made advances on the ground. Largely, they have achieved what they sought to achieve. They have weathered the sanctions, although of course this has been painful. And if tomorrow sanctions are lifted and things become normal, they can gain a lot from this. So they would have an interest also in terms of finding some way out of this. And so far as Trump is concerned, uh, he has made it quite clear that he wants a solution, he wants a breakthrough. Uh, that breakthrough is not going to be easy because the Europeans are there in strength, and if you see the last communique they have issued, they have gone back to their entrenched positions, which they have taken right from the start, that they'll continue to arm and support Ukraine, and there can't be any change in territory by force, and that the doors to NATO membership should be kept open for Ukraine, etc., etc. They are feeling left out because, and I understand their position, it's a European conflict and Europe doesn't have a seat at the table. And decisions are being taken with regard to a European conflict by United States and Russia. It's a huge, huge geopolitical slap in the face of Europe. And it will dent Europe's geopolitical role globally very seriously. So I can understand their concerns. But rather than seeking this opportunity where the Americans are now trying to find some solution and Russia, under certain conditions, is willing to do so, they should have joined the process rather than actually impeding this as much as possible. Now, I don't know where it leaves them. It's a contradictory position. They say they want a solution. At the same time, they're taking a position against any solution. So they can't have it both ways. Now, with regard to what happens in the conversations in Washington, I think Trump is in a very difficult position because whatever his instincts are, whatever he wants to achieve with Russia, he cannot really put Ukraine under the bus and Europe under the bus. At the end of the day, if he follows that course, he will be in a very difficult position to answer to the charge that you have actually uh, weakened Europe. You have weakened yourself against Russia. You've given Russia a big win, and what have you got in return? Therefore, and then of course he has to manage Europe. Europe maybe maybe at this moment in a bit of a disarray, etc., etc. But Europe is cannot just be pushed aside. They are big countries. They have great experience in diplomacy. They have all joined hands together, the senior ones, in trying to assert themselves. He has to give something to the Europeans too. So let's see what happens. It's not an easy thing for everybody, either Russia or Trump or the Europeans,
It's
or
certainly it's
Zelensky,
certainly not going to be. It's a difficult one, isn't it? But just to play the devil's advocate, you of course are saying that Zelensky hardly has any cards, and Europe is feeling left out. And it is clear that Ukraine cannot fight this war on its own. It needs American support. But I think the fear in Europe is that today Ukraine agrees to give up some of its territory, whether it's Crimea or Donbass, and there is no NATO membership for it. Who is to say that Putin will not rearm, regroup, and launch another invasion of Ukraine going forward? And then the fear is that today's Ukraine, could it be other nations tomorrow? Because this is a man who still fantasizes about resurrecting the Soviet Empire.
total nonsense, complete nonsense. On the one hand, one has seen that Russia has not been able to achieve its objectives easily, even during the special military operation, with limited territorial uh, objectives in mind. They don't have actually full control over Donbass, and neither over Zaporizhia or Kherson. Uh, they're having very uh, difficult, uh, have great difficulty in actually capturing territory. And it's been said all this while that Russia is weak and that Russian military weakness has been exposed, etc., etc. On the other hand, the narrative is what you just said, that he's going to attack Europe tomorrow, and he's going to recreate the Soviet Empire. I mean, people who say they should be clear in their mind: is Russia weak, or is Russia so strong that their own security in Europe is being threatened by Russia? It's not the case at all. I mean, Russia can't even take it from me. They're in no position, and neither do they want to. I think take the whole of Ukraine. They have certain specific goals with regard to eastern Ukraine, Russian speaking part of Ukraine, which has historically been part of Russia. It's a different matter that after the breakup of the Soviet Union, Ukraine became an independent country with borders which were actually defined by the Soviet Union itself. It's not as if these are some historically inherited borders of Ukraine. These are borders that derived from the map that was drawn up internally by the Soviet Union. So, and then when talk about change of borders and this and that and that, I mean, look at Yugoslavia. Does it exist anymore? Or if you narrow it down, when it comes to Kosovo, hasn't the map been changed with regard to Serbia? So, I mean, if you look at Syria, what is happening there? The country is just breaking up. In Iraq, also the northern part of Iraq, it is sort of more or less independent. So all and whose handiwork has this been? It's certainly not Russia. So I mean, all this rhetoric about inviolability of borders, no violation of the UN Charter, and etc. etc. I think people who use these arguments should do some introspection as to
Okay.
who has been doing it all these years. And frankly, as I repeat, this is complete nonsense that Russia will take on a NATO country when they can't even handle Ukraine. Here's a proxy war. NATO is not fully directly involved, and they're not giving everything to Ukraine because they don't want to have a conflagration with Russia, which may turn into a nuclear war. So they are,
Yes.
in a sense, also holding themselves back. But tomorrow, if Russia actually attacks a NATO country, and then Article 5 gets operational, then Russia has a huge problem. Look at the disparity in economic power, in military power between NATO and Russia. So this
And
is
Russia?
this is a scenario to
Okay.
with the aim still to see if they can militarily defeat Russia and
Okay.
unseat Putin from power.
unseat Putin from power. That would be a tall order. But, sir, I can't not ask you about the India question. Now, one big reason why India was watching the Alaska summit very closely is because we don't know if those additional 25% punitive or secondary sanctions are going to be imposed on us, by the Trump administration. And just today, Trump's trade advisor Peter Navarro has, in an interview, said India's oil lobby is funding Russia's war machine. And you have posted on X, this is a vicious attack animated by India hate. What's going on with the Trump administration? They're acting as if it's not Russia but India that invaded Ukraine. I mean, has the Trump administration lost all sense of rationality here?
I think so. Certainly, Peter Navarro has, and Trump also is wrecking the India ties by taking the position that he has. It's no longer an issue of tariffs. He has broadened his grievance against India and his attacks against India by bringing in the whole question of India's relations with Russia. And the absurdity of this is he's doing it at a time when he's improving relations with Russia.
When he's rolling out the red carpet for
Yeah,
Putin.
exactly. So it doesn't make sense. And Putin said at this joint press conference that after Trump came to power, there has been 20% increase in
Yes.
trade between U.S. and Russia. And then, of course, there's China, which is the biggest buyer of Russian oil and gas. And he's not talking about any penalty tariffs on China. And then, of course, his provocations with regard to Pakistan and everything else. Very difficult to discern why he's doing that and whether he's properly calculating the geopolitical consequences of this and the damage he's doing to not only US interests, but India's interests too. After all, we have become a major partner of the United States in so many areas. And we are in a position to mutually help each other and actually help the United States to maintain its primacy in certain areas, as well as build ourselves, modernize ourselves with greater cooperation with the United States. So, and then there's the whole issue of Quad and Indo-Pacific and everything else. I mean, he can't have it both ways, or U.S. can't have it both ways. That China is the principal adversary, and look, what did he say publicly in his interview with Fox News? That one of my reasons why I want to settle with Russia is I want to. So if that is so, then why is he the very the relationship built with great effort for the last 20 years between India and United States? It doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense at all, sir. I think we can all agree that Trump has dealt very heavy blows to this relationship, the India US relationship. But let me ask you this. It is very clear that Trump is being downright hypocritical on this issue. As you just pointed out, Putin has mentioned that Russia's trade with the US has gone up 20% since Trump came into the White House for the second time. We know that Trump has extended the tariff truce, I beg your pardon, with China, the largest buyer of Russian oil. And Trump, who had threatened Putin with very severe consequences if there wasn't a ceasefire at the end of the Alaska summit, is now saying, I had a great meeting and it was a very productive meeting and forget about a ceasefire, let's have a more comprehensive peace deal. So he's done a U-turn on all of those issues, and yet he continues to punish India, like you said, at a time when he's rolling out the red carpet for Putin. He's ended his isolation by the West and granted him legitimacy on the world stage. So I'm going to ask you this question. Apart from the fact that it's downright hypocritical, do you believe that those additional 25% tariffs are likely to kick in on the 27th of August? Because so far we have no indication from the Trump administration as to what their thinking really is post the Alaska summit. At the moment, it really just seems to be all up in the air. And also, the American delegation that was supposed to arrive in India on the 25th of this month for the 6th round of talks on a trade deal, they have postponed their visit.
I don't think that he will operationalize his threat. He'll keep it hanging in the air. He already gave an indication of that in his interview with Fox News, that since he's talking to Russia, he doesn't think he will need to do this. Maybe he'll wait for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, meaning he will see how the entire process of negotiations with Russia goes and what results he can obtain from this. Now, if the conversation between Russia and the U.S. collapse, then I think he could do anything. Then he'll have to take a view on China too. Uh, but I think he'll keep this threat hanging in the air over us, and he will use this uh, threat to extract whatever he can in terms of better terms on the trade side from India. He wants to have a big win where he can tell his base that just like he browbeat Europe and Japan and others to give him a one-sided deal, he can push India also to give him that kind of an opportunity to brag to his base that he's brought India down to heel, because his rhetoric on India has been so exaggerated and so blown up that we are the tariff king and everything else. Now he can't have a balanced agreement, a fair agreement where there's give and take on both sides, where he can't say that I have won. I have brought India down to his knees and made them accept what I wanted. That's why he's holding back. His ego is hurt. He's personalized the whole thing,
Yes.
unfortunately.
Many believe he has acted out of pique. He was very pissed off when India declared that he had nothing to do with the ceasefire with Pakistan after Operation Sindoor. But you know, that apart, there is another school of thought on this, and I wonder what you think. There are those who say that his punitive tariffs on India and invective against India have little or nothing to do with trade or Russian oil. It's all about Pakistan and Trump's own vested financial interests in that country, whether it is his family's cryptocurrency deals with Pakistan or his interest in those so called oil reserves and rare mineral earths in Pakistan. What's your take on that?
How many parts of the world does he want to uh, explore with regard to rare earths and stuff like that? I mean, U.S. itself has a lot of rare earths, and even if, for example, they found some rare earths, of course, there are a lot of them in Latin America and a lot in Russia. Russia, in fact, has proposed to the Americans that we can offer you this also. In Ukraine, he wanted also access to rare earths. So how many countries does he want to have access to? But that apart, tomorrow, let's say you discover some rare earths, then what do you do? How long does it take actually to uh, to actually extract them, and the process of extraction economically uh, is going to take years. And if it was that easy and that simple, they could do it in the United States itself. And then, of course, the fact that Balochistan is a very troubled area. So does he want to come back again? If not quite Afghanistan-like, but nevertheless, for security reasons, come back into this highly destabilized, violence-prone region. And then finally, if the rare earths and everything else and oil were such a big thing in Pakistan, how is it that China, which actually has Pakistan under its thumb, and through the BRI, CPC, Gwadar, and everything else, they have been trying to exploit as much as they can uh, Pakistan for their own economic needs. Why is it that they've never talked about exploring oil in Balochistan or rare earths? I mean, they've talked about copper mines in Ainak in Afghanistan,
Yes.
which is extremely difficult in terms of access. But in Pakistan, they have access. They're there. Their security
Yes.
chaps are there also, to some degree. They've never talked about it. So this is just a. I think this is just a. Uh, I don't know how can I say. There is no reality to this. Yes, in terms of this crypto council, national crypto council that Pakistan has set up, There, I think the field marshal, so-called, he's played
Yes.
his hand and given some entry into the entourage of Trump uh, to come and benefit from uh, some kind of arrangement to cooperate with this National Council, uh, which would then mean that a lot of money can be filtered out of Pakistan to the advantage of these private entrepreneurs. And this is a good deal for him. Maybe that's the reason, but I don't think that his relationship with Pakistan uh, is developing or he's exploiting that uh, because he has India in mind. I think he's doing
Okay,
it
fair
for
point.
business
But
reasons.
you don't disagree that he's doing it for his own vested interests, and I think we can now all agree that nobody plays America and Trump better than Pakistan does. But the final question before we let you go, could you stick your neck out for us, since that all important meeting between Zelensky and Trump is going to take place? Do you believe we are likely to see a ceasefire and an end to this war in the foreseeable future? The war has gone on for 3.5 years. Trump had promised to end it within 24 hours. Now he realizes it's a much bigger challenge than he had ever expected it to be. But do you believe Trump can still deliver on this?
See, on the question of ceasefire, he himself said quite clearly, and Rubio has expanded on this that that the goal is not ceasefire because ceasefires are inherently unstable, they can be violated, and ceasefire actually doesn't mean peace; it can mean wars can restart, and therefore they want to have a peace agreement. Now, if they have that goal, then it was never the goal of Zelensky. It was never the goal of Europe. Therefore, there's going to be a lot of pressure on both Zelensky and Europe to actually speak out their mind and think seriously about what has been put on the table in terms of whatever they have discussed, Putin and Trump at Alaska, which is no NATO membership, limitation to the armed forces that Ukraine can have post the agreement, some swap of exchange of territories, etc., etc. So on this discussion will take place, and I think there's very little room for maneuver on the part of Zelensky and the Europeans. But at the same time, they will do everything to delay this process, get it involved in more and more negotiations and clarifications and everything else. And therefore, it's not going to happen during this visit. But what the outline for the future would be laid during the visit, and Trump would then know, and his entourage would know how serious Zelensky and Europeans are actually to accept the goals of the Americans, of Trump, to begin the process of normalization of ties with Russia.
And everyone's also waiting to see if there's going to be a trilateral meeting involving Zelensky, Trump, and Putin anytime in the foreseeable future. Well, that's all the time we have on the show. Ambassador Kanwal Sibal, always a pleasure talking to you. Thank you, sir, for your time.
My pleasure. Bye bye.